The note was pinned to the blanket with a pearl-tipped hatpin, just one word, run, and beneath it, a child he had never seen, with eyes that held a history he was never supposed to know. This was not a gift. It was a declaration of war left on the doorstep of the most dangerous man in Seoul. His name was Han Jun-seok. For 15 years, he built an empire on absolute control. But in one moment, holding a child that couldn't be his, every rule of his world was broken. The warning was clear, but from whom? And what did this baby know that he didn't? To find the mother, he would have to retrace his own violent past and confront a truth his organization was built to bury. The child was a girl, perhaps 6 months old, wrapped in a cashmere blanket far too expensive for a random abandonment. Jun-seok's men found nothing, no fingerprints on the pin, no footprints in the dew, no witnesses on the cameras that covered every angle but that one. It was a professional delivery, a message sent directly into the heart of his fortress. His second, Kang, stood frozen in the study doorway. He had seen Jun-seok handle mergers, betrayals, even assassination attempts. He had never seen him hold an infant. "Don't just stand there, call Dr. Park, tell her it's discreet, and tell her to bring formula." The order cut through the silence. This was the voice of the chairman, not a confused man, but his hands, as he adjusted the blanket, told a different story. The doctor arrived within 20 minutes. Her examination in a guest room was swift, professional. The child was healthy, well cared for, likely born in late summer. She had her mother's eyes, the doctor noted quietly, dark with a distinct almond shape. But the baby's skin tone, several shades darker than Jun-seok's own, and the texture of her curly hair pointed unequivocally to a mixed heritage, a black mother or a black father. The math in Jun-seok's head was immediate and brutal. He knew no black women, not in his circles, not in his past. This was not a personal message. It was a geopolitical one. The first theory was extortion, a rival syndicate using a pawn, but no call came, no demand, just the silent, blinking mystery of a child now sleeping in his spare room under the watch of a terrified maid. The note was analyzed. The paper was common, the ink generic, the handwriting deliberately blocky and unidentifiable, but the pin, the pearl-tipped hatpin, that was specific, old world, the kind of thing his mother's generation used. His mother, Madame Han, the true architect of their fortune, now residing in the East Wing, a queen in semi-retirement. He avoided her for 36 hours. He knew she knew. The house, for all its size, had no secrets from her. When he finally entered her morning room, she was sipping tea, her back to the door, looking at the walled garden. "You've become a topic of discussion, Jun-seok." The shipping magnate's wife called. She heard a strange rumor about a child. "What did you tell her?" "I told her all rumors are half-truths, and half-truths are for the weak." She turned. Her gaze was like X-ray film. "Now, tell me the whole truth." He laid it out, the doorstep, the note, the doctor's assessment. His mother listened without expression. When he finished, she set her cup down with a precise click. "So, a black child, left as a warning. You have made many enemies. Which one is theatrical enough for this?" "That's what I'm trying to find out." "You're looking in the wrong place." She stood, walking to a lacquered cabinet. "You assume this is about your business, your violence, your debts." She withdrew a small, velvet-lined box. "It is about your blood." She opened it. Inside, resting on faded silk, were 6 hatpins, each with a pearl tip, a matching set. One space was empty. Jun-seok felt the floor tilt. "Those are yours." "They were my mother's, and hers before, one for each direct daughter of the line. I had 7, I gave one away, a very long time ago." "To who?" "To a woman who saved your life, before you were born." The story unfolded like a poison slowly seeping into water. 1982, his mother, then a young wife, was pregnant with him. Their organization was young, volatile. A deal with a Nigerian shipping consortium went violently wrong. 2 of his father's men were captured. His father, hot-headed, went to negotiate. It was a trap. His parents were taken, held on a freighter in Incheon Harbor. The ransom was not money. It was the entirety of their port access. The woman who negotiated their release was the consortium's fixer, a formidable, brilliant Nigerian woman named Kemi. She saw the stupidity of the bloodshed. She brokered a new deal, one that gave both sides a profitable exit. She extracted Jun-seok's parents personally. As a gesture of respect and a bond, Jun-seok's mother gave her one of the pearl pins, a token, a promise of favor. I never saw her again, his mother said, but the pin tied us, a debt of honor. If this is her pin, then the warning is from her or about her. Why now, after all this time? His mother's eyes held a cold, dreadful certainty, because you are about to finalize the merger with the Park family. You are about to marry their daughter and unite our territories. Someone does not want that marriage to happen. Someone is using the oldest weapon in the world, a child, to stop it. The revelation struck like a physical blow. The Park merger was the cornerstone of his 5-year plan. It would make his group untouchable. The engagement was to be announced in a week. The idea that a ghost from a 40-year-old deal could threaten it was absurd. And yet, the pin in his pocket felt like a burning coal. He ordered Kang to dig, not into rivals, but into history, find any record of Kemi, find her descendants, find anyone who might hold a grudge from a deal dead before Junseok took his first step. For 2 days, life split in two. In one, he ran his empire, met with Park's lawyers, selected a ring. In the other, he checked on the baby, now named Mina by the staff, and waited for Kang's report. The baby was changing the chemistry of his house. Hardened men spoke softly outside her room. The cook pureed fruit. The silence was no longer just tension, it was anticipation. Kang's report came on the third night. It was thin. Kemi Adebio returned to Lagos after the deal. She built a legitimate import business. She had one daughter, born in 1985. That daughter, Imani, studied art in London in the early 2000s. And then the trail vanishes. No marriage record, no death certificate, nothing after 2008. 2008, the year Junseok's father died. The year Junseok, at 28, took control and began his aggressive expansion, tearing up many of the old, gentle agreements. A coincidence? Junseok didn't believe in them. He was staring at the fuzzy, scanned passport photo of Imani Adebio, a beautiful young woman with intelligent eyes, when Kang's phone buzzed. A security alert. Motion sensor. The East Garden Gate. They moved swiftly, silently. The garden was moonlit and still, and there by the old stone fountain was a figure, a woman, her back to them, her dark coat blending into the shadows, her long hair flowing. She was perfectly still, as if waiting. Junseok stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. Kang flanked left. The woman didn't turn. "You have something that belongs to me," she said. Her voice was low, accented, and calm with a terrifying certainty. He knew even before she turned around. The eyes in the passport photo were now looking directly at him, filled with a grief and a fury that spanned decades. She was the silhouette from his doorstep. She was the mother. "You left a note telling me to run," Junseok said, his own voice dangerously quiet. Imani Adebio finally turned, and the moonlight caught the tears streaking her cheeks. "No," she whispered. "The note wasn't for you, it was for her. You need to run because they know she's here, and they will kill her to get to you." For 5 seconds, the only sound was the fountain. Junseok processed her words. "They will kill her to get to you." He took a step closer, his mind racing through every they he had ever created. Who? Name them. "It doesn't work like that. You think this is a business ledger, a debt to collect?" Imani's voice broke. "She is your daughter." The air left the garden. Kang, poised to move, froze. Junseok heard the words, but they landed like a physical shock, distant and impossible. He had no daughter. He was meticulous. He had no relationships that could have produced this. His engagement to Park Min-ju was to be his first and only marriage. This was a lie, a tactic. "Prove it." "I don't have to prove it to you. I have to save her from you. Your own family is coming for her, Junseok. Your mother's arrangement with the Parks isn't just a merger, it's a purge. And my daughter is the loose end that could unravel it all." "My mother would never." "Your mother made a promise to my grandmother, a blood oath of protection, and then your father broke it, and you buried it." Imani's composure shattered into furious tears. "My mother, Imani, she came to Seoul in 2007. She came to collect on that old debt, to ask for help starting a gallery. Your father laughed her out of his office, called the pin a trinket, said the world had moved on." Junseok remembered that year. His father was sick, paranoid, burning bridges. He'd cut ties with dozens of old associates. It was plausible. A year later, my mother disappeared in Lagos. Official report, a carjacking, but her body was found with one thing missing, the pearl pin. It was a message. The debt is cancelled. Imani looked at him with utter contempt. I spent 10 years putting it together. The pin resurfaced here in Seoul 2 years ago, in an auction of Asian antiquities. I traced the seller. It was a shell company, but the paperwork it led back to a holding firm owned by your mother's trust. Jun Seok's world, so solid an hour before, began to crack at the foundations. His mother had sold the pin. Why? To erase the past, to fund something. I came here to find the pin, to find proof. And I met someone inside your world who knew the story, who was also afraid of the Park merger. We were careless, and I got pregnant. When I told him, he panicked. He said the child would be a target, that the Parks would never allow a mixed-race heir to exist, a living testament to an old secret that could invalidate their alliance. He told me to terminate it. I refused, I hid, I had her. And for 6 months, I kept her safe, but he found us last week. Who? Jun Seok's voice was a blade. Imani stared at him, her defiance melting into pure exhaustion. Your brother. Another seismic crack. Jun Seok was an only child, officially, but rumors, old whispers his mother refused to acknowledge, of a son born to a mistress in his father's wild youth, sent away to be forgotten. A ghost. Seo-jun, she whispered. His name is Kim Seo-jun. He runs your North Side operations. Jun Seok knew the name instantly. Kim Seo-jun, a capable, ruthless lieutenant he'd promoted himself 2 years prior, a man with no past, who asked no questions, and whose ambition was perfectly contained. A hidden blade, his own half-brother. He told me he had a plan, Imani continued. He would use the baby to force your mother to call off the merger, to expose her hypocrisy. He planted the pin on the blanket. He staged the abandonment. The run note was his idea, a dramatic touch to make you investigate, to lead you to the truth about the past and the Parks' ruthlessness. But he overplayed. The Parks have their own spies. They know about the baby now, and their response isn't to call off the wedding. It's to eliminate the problem. Seo-jun is scared. He says they've hired a cleaner. The baby is scheduled to die in a tragic, random accident, and he won't lift a finger to stop it. He sees it as acceptable collateral. So you took her back. You brought her to the one place they wouldn't expect you to go, the lion's den. Where else could she be safer than in the lion's jaws? Imani's logic was desperate, brilliant. You have the most secure house in Seoul. You personally have no reason to want her dead. And if you are even half the man your reputation says, you will not let an infant be slaughtered for your convenience. Jun Seok looked at Kang. Kang gave a minute nod. Kim Seo-jun's phone had gone dark 48 hours ago. Unusual. Bring her inside. Now, Jun Seok's command was quiet. Imani hesitated, then followed as he turned and strode back to the house. The decision was made. The child, his alleged daughter, was no longer a mystery to solve. She was an asset to protect, a war to declare. In his study, with the door locked, he faced Imani. The baby, Mina, was brought in by the maid, sleeping peacefully. Seeing them together, the mother's fierce protectiveness, the child's innocent sleep, something primal shifted in him. Proof didn't matter in this moment. The threat did. I need everything, on Seo-jun, on the Park's movements, on this cleaner. I have names, Imani said, dates, bank transfers I tracked. It's on a drive, hidden. Where's? In a locker at Seoul Station. Key is around my neck. Jun Seok sent Kang with 2 of his most trusted men. They returned within the hour with a small, encrypted drive. The data it contained was a bomb. It wasn't just about the baby. It was a ledger of betrayal. Kim Seo-jun hadn't just been planning to stop the merger. He'd been siphoning funds for years, building his own network. And he'd been in secret communication with the Park family's eldest son, Jun Seok's future brother-in-law. They weren't trying to stop the wedding. They were planning to discredit Jun Seok after the merger, using the scandal of a secret love child to force him out of the combined entity, leaving Seo-jun and Park as the new power. The baby wasn't the target. She was the trigger. Her death would be blamed on Jun Seok's incompetence or his brutal world, turning public and internal opinion against him. The run note was a sick joke, a final warning he wasn't meant to understand in time. The cleaner was identified, a former Special Forces operative turned freelance problem solver known only as the janitor. He was already in the city. Jun Seok's phone rang. It was his mother. The calm in her voice was more terrifying than any shout. Jun Seok, the park patriarch, just called. He expressed concern about a distressing rumor circulating about an illegitimate child and a destabilizing influence. He suggested we postpone the announcement until the distraction is resolved. He was very clear about what resolved means. What did you tell him? I told him the Han family handles its own distractions. Do not fail. The line went dead. The ultimatum was set. His mother knew. She was testing him. Handle it or lose everything. He made 3 calls. The first, to his head of security, placing the house on a silent, siege-level lockdown. The second, to his lawyer, initiating the immediate, clandestine transfer of 30% of his personal holdings into a blind trust, a financial life raft. The third, to a number he hadn't dialed in 5 years. A former intelligence officer, now a private information broker, named Ko. I need a location, Kim Seo-jun, and I need a firewall. Can you make the janitor disappear before he reaches his target? Ko's reply was a slow, considering breath. The janitor is a ghost, but every ghost leaves a chill. I'll see what the air tells me it will cost. Jun Seok didn't hesitate. Name it. The next 18 hours were a taut wire. Imani refused to leave Mina's side. She slept in a chair in the nursery. Jun Seok found himself standing in the doorway at 3 a.m. watching them both. The child stirred, and Imani was instantly awake, soothing her with a gentle hum. In that raw, unguarded moment, he saw not a schemer, but a mother in a foxhole. The possibility that she was telling the entire truth became a weight in his chest. Ko called at dawn. I have a chill. The janitor is circling. He's not making a move on the house. Too hard. He's waiting for the target to move. An outing, a doctor's visit. You have a pediatric appointment today at 10 a.m. at Severance Hospital. It was entered into the system yesterday by a new maid. A maid who received a $50,000 deposit into a cousin's account last night. Betrayal from within. The house was not secure. Jun Seok cancelled the appointment. He had Kang discreetly detain the maid. Then he made a decision. They couldn't stay. The house was a gilded trap. We're leaving, he told Imani, all of us, now. To where? To the only place my brother and the Parks would never think to look. Somewhere with no connection to me. The answer was the old shipping warehouse in Incheon, the very dock where his parents had been held hostage decades before. The place where Kemi had saved them. It was grim, secure, and symbolically fitting. The convoy was a decoy, his armored car leaving the front gate with a full escort. Jun Seok, Imani, and the baby left through a service tunnel into a nondescript van driven by Kang. They made it to the warehouse without incident. The space was cold, echoing but defensible. As Kang set up a perimeter, Jun Seok turned to Imani. There is one thing you haven't told me. If Seo-jun is the father and this was his plan, why did you come to me? Why not just run? Imani looked at Mina, then at the grim, concrete walls. Because he is a coward, and you are a monster. But you look at her and you don't see a problem, you see a responsibility. However twisted that is, it's more than he has, and monsters keep their bargains. My grandmother saved your family. You owe a debt to her blood. Protect her. That is the deal. Before he could answer, Kang's radio crackled. The decoy convoy had been hit. Not an attack, but a diversion. A staged accident blocking the route. It was clean, professional. The janitor wasn't after the decoy. He'd known it was a decoy. Ko's voice came through Jun Seok's secure phone, urgent. He's not following the child. He's following the asterisk secret asterisk. He found the locker. He's backtracking the signal from the drive. He's coming for the source. He's coming for the mother. The warehouse lights flickered, then died, plunging them into darkness. The power cut was not an accident. In the sudden, profound silence, they heard it, the soft, metallic scrape of a door opening at the far end of the vast, black hall. The janitor wasn't outside. He was already in. In the pitch black, Kang's flashlight beam sliced through the dust, catching the glint of a suppressor on a pistol. A shot hissed, sparking off a steel beam above them. Jun Seok shoved Imani and the car seat carrying Mina behind a concrete pillar. Return fire echoed from Kang's position, muzzle flashes illuminating the cavernous space in strobes. The janitor was a specter. He didn't speak. He moved with terrifying economy, using the warehouse's skeletal machinery as cover. This wasn't a hit. It was an extraction. He was trying to flank to get to Imani. He wants the drive, Jun Seok hissed. He wants to erase the evidence. Imani clutched Mina tighter. No, he wants me. Dead, I'm a loose end. Alive, I'm a witness who can talk. Jun Seok made a decision. He tapped his earpiece, a private channel to Kang, draw him to the south wall, the crane. Kang understood. He laid down covering fire, drawing the janitor's attention deeper into the warehouse. Jun Seok, meanwhile, motioned to Imani. They moved, low and silent, along a row of rusted containers toward a side exit. They were 10 feet from the steel door when a figure melted from the shadows, blocking their path. Not the janitor, Kim Seo-jun, his own half-brother. He held a gun, but it was pointed at the floor. His face was pale, slick with sweat. "You shouldn't have brought her here," he said, his voice ragged. "This was never the plan." "Your plan was to get my child killed," Imani spat. "My plan was to make him see," Seo-jun's eyes flicked to Jun Seok, desperate. "To make him see what our mother and the Parks are. Cold, calculating monsters who trade lives for territory. I wanted him to cancel the merger, to choose family over empire. But you went to him, you made it a war. You gave me no choice, you were going to let them take her." A sudden crash from across the warehouse, the sound of metal on metal. The janitor and Kang were close. Seo-jun flinched, his resolve cracking. "I can get you out, the three of you, right now, a boat at Dock 7. It's clean, but you have to leave Seoul, forever." "Why?" Jun Seok asked, his voice dangerously calm. "Why help us now?" "Because I'm not a monster, because she's my daughter too." The admission hung in the frigid air. Imani let out a choked sob. Jun Seok processed it. The math finally settled. The baby was his brother's child, his niece, his own blood in the most twisted way possible. The gunfire stopped. A heavy silence fell. Then Kang's voice strained in the earpiece. "Target neutralized, but I'm hit." "Go," Seo-jun urged, gesturing to the door. "Now." Jun Seok didn't move. How did the janitor find this place? Only 3 people knew. You, me, Kang. Seo-jun's face went blank. "You think I—" The steel door behind them exploded inward, knocking Seo-jun off his feet. Not the janitor. 4 men in tactical gear, their faces obscured. Park family colors on a shoulder patch. They didn't speak. They raised their weapons. Seo-jun from the floor fired first. A wild shot that caught the lead man in the leg. Chaos erupted. Jun Seok returned fire, pushing Imani back toward the containers. In the frantic exchange, Seo-jun was hit, a spray of blood across his chest. He fell back, gasping. Jun Seok grabbed Imani's arm and ran, not for the boat, but deeper into the warehouse's maze. The Park team, focused on securing Seo-jun and the scene, didn't immediately follow. They found Kang leaning against a wall, clutching his side, the body of the janitor at his feet. The information broker, Ko, was there too, a small device in his hand. "I was tracking his comms. He called in your location the moment he breached. The signal went to 2 places, the Parks, and a private server registered to your mother's charitable foundation." Jun Seok's blood ran cold. His mother, she hadn't just known, she had orchestrated. She had fed the janitor the location, sacrificing Seo-jun's rebellion and the Park's forces in one move, cleaning her board of all loose ends. The ultimate distillation of her philosophy: the family is the empire. Anything that threatens it is not family. "We have to move," Ko said. "The police scanners are lighting up. This will be a bloodbath discovered in minutes." They escaped through a drainage tunnel Ko had scouted, emerging near a waiting car. Seo-jun was left behind, alive or dead they didn't know, in the hands of the Park team. In the car, speeding away, the reality set in. They had no safe house, no allies. The 2 most powerful families in the city wanted them erased. Jun Seok looked at Imani, at Mina now crying softly. He made a call. to his lawyer, initiate the contingency, the White Cloud Protocol. The White Cloud was a failsafe he'd built years ago, a complete identity burn and exit route requiring 24 hours to activate. It meant walking away from everything, his name, his fortune, his empire. It was the one move his mother would never predict. They hid in a love motel on the city's outskirts, a place of absolute anonymity. While Mina slept, Imani tended to Kang's wound. It was shallow, but the betrayal cut deeper. He'd been with Jun Seok for 12 years. "I'm sorry, Chairman, I failed." "You got the janitor, that's not failure. The rest is family business." Late that night, as Imani slept fitfully, Jun Seok's secure tablet buzzed, an encrypted video call request. The source was untraceable, he answered. His mother's face filled the screen. She was in her garden, perfectly composed. "You've made a mess, Jun Seok. You sold the pin, you sent the cleaner, you knew about Seo-jun, you knew about the child. I know about everything. It is my function. The Adebyo woman and her child are a virus. They infect legacy. Seo-jun's sentimental rebellion was a symptom. I am the cure." "What is the cure? Killing a baby." "The cure is preservation. The park merger must happen. The child cannot exist. You have one path forward. Bring them to me. The woman will disappear. The child will be placed far away with a clean record, and you will marry Park Min-ju next month as planned. Your empire continues stronger than ever." "And if I refuse?" "Then you are not my son. You are a virus too, and I will treat you accordingly." The screen went black. The ultimatum was absolute. His mother had drawn the line in the sand. Tradition, power, and cold blood on one side. On the other, a woman he barely knew, a child who might be his niece, and a concept of honor that felt suddenly more real than any empire. Imani was awake, having heard everything from the doorway. Her eyes were huge in the dim light. "What will you do?" Jun Seok didn't answer immediately. He looked at the tablet, then at her, then at the sleeping baby. For the first time in his adult life, the path of most power was not the obvious one. The debt his mother owed Kemi, the debt his brother owed Imani, the debt he now owed to the truth, they were all the same debt, and it was finally coming due. He picked up the tablet again, not to call his mother. He opened a new, secure drafting program. He began to type, his fingers moving with a strange, liberated certainty. "What are you writing?" Imani whispered. "The truth," he said, "all of it. The pin, the deal with Kemi, my father's betrayal, Seo-jun's parentage, the Park family's plot, my mother's orchestration, every transaction, every secret, every lie. I'm writing the ledger." "To what end?" "To publish it, to burn it all down, not with bullets but with light. If they want a war of shadows, we will give them a floodlight." It was madness, it was suicide, it was the only play left that wasn't hers. As the first grey light of dawn touched the motel window, Jun Seok, the Mafia boss, became an author, and his memoir was a weapon aimed at the heart of his own dynasty. The final move was not to run, or to hide, or to fight on their terms. It was to tell the story and let the world decide who the monsters really were. He worked for 36 hours straight. Jun Seok, the man who commanded armies of lawyers and soldiers, became a solitary scribe in a cheap room, compiling the definitive history of his own ruin. He called it simply the ledger. It wasn't an emotional confession. It was a forensic audit of corruption. Every numbered account, every shell company, every quid pro quo with a politician. And woven through it, the human cost. The story of Kemi Adebyo, the broken promise, the disappeared daughter Imani, the exploited son Seo-jun, and the child Mina at the center of it all. He didn't publish it himself. He sent it, through 5 anonymous relays, to every major newspaper, financial regulator, and rival organization in Asia. The attached note was one line: "The truth is the only asset that cannot be seized." The detonation was not immediate. It was a slow, terrifying burn. First, a financial blog picked up a sliver, the shell companies tied to the Park family. Then, a major newspaper ran a front-page piece on the mystery memoir shaking Seoul's elite. By the end of the week, prosecutors, smelling blood in the water, announced formal investigations. The Park family's stock plunged. their political allies began issuing cautious, distancing statements. His mother called him once. The screen showed only black. You have destroyed 100 years of work. I have ended 100 years of lies, he replied. The line went dead forever. The empire crumbled not with a bang, but with a whisper of subpoenas and frozen assets. Jun Seok watched it from a safe distance in a small coastal town in Vietnam, with new names and passports provided by Ko's deepest connections. Imani, Mina, and a recovering Kang were with him. The White Cloud Protocol had worked. Han Junseok ceased to exist. The public revelation of Seo-jun's fate was the final twist. The Park team, it turned out, hadn't killed him. They delivered him, severely wounded, to Madame Han. She, seeing his public exposure as a liability, had him committed to a private psychiatric facility, declaring him a troubled soul plagued by delusions. It was a more elegant prison than a grave. In a single move, she discredited his testimony and disposed of the problem. But the ledger contained something she couldn't spin, the DNA test. Before they fled, Jun Seok had used a discreet, international service. The results arrived in his encrypted inbox the day the story broke. He opened it with Imani by his side. The document was clear. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Kim Seo-jun was not the father. Han Jun-seok was. The air in the small villa stilled. Imani's hand flew to her mouth. It was impossible. They had only met once, at a gallery opening 2 years prior, a brief, anonymous conversation in a crowd. He had been there scouting a location for a money laundering operation. She had been there researching the art scene. A single night, a terrible, beautiful mistake lost to memory and champagne, buried by them both. The baby on the doorstep wasn't his brother's ploy. She was his, the ultimate secret, unknown even to the schemers. Seo-jun had believed the child was his. Imani, given the timeline and their relationship, had believed it too. Only biology knew the truth. Jun Seok looked at Mina, now crawling on a rug in the sunshine. His daughter. The shock was total, absolute. Then a profound, quiet relief. All his decisions, his burning of bridges, his impossible choice, they were not for a principal or a debt or a niece. They were for his child. The universe had written the most brutal, poetic justice imaginable. What does this change? Imani asked, her voice trembling. Everything, he said, and nothing. She was mine to protect from the moment she was left on my step. This just makes it official. The fallout continued. Madame Han, under immense pressure, formally severed the engagement with the Parks, citing the unfounded scandals. It was a face-saving measure that fooled no one. The Park family patriarch was indicted on fraud charges 3 months later. The Han organization was dismantled, its pieces sold off or absorbed by rivals. The empire was gone. A year passed. Life in the small town assumed a rhythm. Jun Seok, now June, opened a modest import-export business, leveraging his real, legitimate knowledge of shipping. Kang became his operations manager. Imani started an online gallery, selling digital art from African and Korean artists, a quiet homage to her grandmother's dream. One rainy afternoon, a package arrived, no return address. Inside was a small velvet box. Jun Seok opened it. On the silk lay the 6 remaining pearl-tipped hatpins, no note. It was her surrender, her acknowledgement that the line was ended. He kept one. He gave one to Imani for Mina's future. He sold the other 4 and used the money to fund a legal aid foundation for victims of corporate corruption in Lagos, named for Kemi Adebio. The final surprise came on Mina's first birthday, a postcard mailed from Switzerland. On the front, a picture of a serene alpine clinic. On the back, in familiar, precise handwriting, the view is clear, the air is clean, the ledger is balanced. Seo-jun was alive, and he was free. His mother had finally, quietly let him go. Jun Seok stood on the porch of their villa, watching Imani help Mina take her first wobbly steps on the sand. The vast, terrifying machinery of his old life was silenced. In its place was this, the sound of the waves, the smell of salt, the fierce, unbreakable bond of a family forged not by bloodline, but by choice, truth, and a single, wordless act of protection. He had discovered a child on his doorstep and followed her into a conspiracy that ended his world. And in the ashes, he found the only thing that ever really mattered. The warning had said, run. He finally understood. It wasn't a command to flee, it was a diagnosis. He had been running towards power his whole life. Now he was still. So what is the true currency of power? Is it money, territory, fear, or is it something far more fragile and infinitely more valuable? For Han Junseok, the answer was written in a child's eyes. His entire existence was a monument to one kind of strength, the kind that builds walls, that commands silence, that measures success in billions and bodies. But the conspiracy triggered by a single pearl pin revealed a devastating truth. That kind of power is a house of cards. It can only be maintained through lies, and lies have a half-life. The real strength, the unbreakable kind, turned out to be something else entirely. It was the strength to receive a devastating truth, to look at a legacy of corruption and say no more, to choose a single, vulnerable life over an entire kingdom. That is not a weakness. It is the most radical power there is. It is the power to redefine what winning means. The story of the Doorstep baby is not just a thriller. It is a blueprint. It asks the question we all face in our own ways. What are you building your fortress around? Is it an institution that demands your soul, or is it the people you would burn that institution down to protect? Junseok and Imani did not get a fairy tale. They got a reckoning. They traded a gilded cage for an open sky with all the danger and uncertainty that entails. But in that trade, they gained something no amount of money can buy, a story with truth at its center, a morning where you are not afraid of the doorbell, a child who knows her father chose her. That is the final, lingering question this story leaves with us. Not who left the baby or why, but what would you have done? When the systems you've built, the loyalties you've sworn, the very identity you've crafted, demand the sacrifice of an innocent to survive, would you pay the price? Or would you, like a man who once ruled a city from the shadows, pick up that child, read the warning, and finally understand that the only thing worth running from is the person you were pretending to be? If this story moved you, if it made you think, then you are part of this conversation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would your choice have been? And if you believe in the power of stories that challenge us, that look into the dark and still find a light, then help us tell more of them. Hit subscribe, join our community, and never miss a story that asks the questions that matter. Thank you for watching. Until next time.